The tactical van rolled to a stop 3 blocks from the embassy district, its armored hull gleaming under the harsh streetlights of New Geneva. Inside, 12 of Earth's finest SWAT officers checked their weapons one final time. The mission briefing had been simple. Hostile aliens had taken over the Zephyrian embassy, and intelligence suggested they were holding human diplomats hostage. Captain Marcus Reynolds adjusted his tactical helmet and spoke into his comm unit. "Command, this is Viper 1. We're moving into position. What's our latest intel on the hostiles?" The crackling voice of Director Hayes came through clearly. "Reynolds, we've got confirmation of at least 6 Zephyrian militants inside. They've barricaded themselves in the main hall with what appears to be some kind of energy weapons. The building's been dark for 3 hours, and we've lost contact with Ambassador Chen and her security detail." Reynolds grimaced. The Zephyrians had been Earth's newest trading partners, a proud warrior race from the Andromeda sector. Their technology was advanced, but their culture was built around honor and combat. Something had gone very wrong for them to take human hostages. "Sir, what about their government? Have they responded to our diplomatic channels?" "Negative, Captain. The Zephyrian High Command claims they have no knowledge of any militant faction operating on Earth. They're calling it an internal terrorist cell. Either way, those are human lives at stake, and we're going in." The team moved through the empty streets like shadows. The embassy district had been evacuated hours ago when the first reports of energy weapon discharges came in. Street cameras had captured glimpses of tall reptilian figures in ornate armor moving through the embassy grounds, but the footage was grainy and unclear. Officer Sarah Martinez, the team's xenobiology specialist, had studied every available file on Zephyrian physiology during the ride over. "Remember, their scales can deflect small arms fire," she whispered into the team comm. "Aim for the joints and exposed areas. Their reaction time is about 30% faster than humans, so don't give them time to think." The embassy building loomed before them, a sleek structure of glass and alien metal that seemed to pulse with an inner light. The Zephyrian architectural style was both beautiful and intimidating, with sweeping curves that somehow suggested both elegance and predatory grace. Reynolds split his team into 3 groups. Alpha would breach the main entrance, Bravo would take the service entrance, and Charlie would provide overwatch from the adjacent building. As they moved into position, the captain couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about this whole situation. "Alpha team, in position," came the whisper from Sergeant Johnson. "Bravo team, ready to breach," reported Lieutenant Woods. "Charlie team, overwatch established. No movement visible through the windows," confirmed Sniper Riley. Reynolds took a deep breath. "All teams, execute on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." The coordinated breach was textbook perfect. Flashbang grenades shattered the silence as both teams stormed the building simultaneously. Reynolds led Alpha Team through the main entrance, their tactical lights cutting through the darkness like knives. The embassy's interior was a maze of organic curves and alien artwork. Holographic displays flickered weakly along the walls, showing what appeared to be scenes from the Zephyrian homeworld. The air smelled of ozone and something else, something reptilian and musky. "Movement, 2nd floor," Riley's voice crackled through the comm. "One hostile, heading toward the main hall." Alpha Team moved swiftly up the curved staircase, their boots silent on the alien flooring material. The main hall was just ahead, and through the partially open doors, Reynolds could see the flicker of energy weapon charges. "Alpha Team, stack up. Bravo Team, what's your status?" "We're encountering some kind of security barrier, sir. These walls are tougher than they look. Give us 2 minutes to find another route." Reynolds couldn't wait. Intelligence suggested the hostages might be executed at any moment. He signaled his team forward, and they prepared for entry into the main hall. The doors slid open with a whisper, and the scene that greeted them was nothing like what they had expected. The main hall was vast, with a domed ceiling that showed a real-time view of the stars. In the center of the room stood a single figure. The Zephyrian was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure, nearly 8 feet tall, with deep emerald scales that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. The alien wore elaborate armor that looked more ceremonial than tactical, with flowing cape and ornate helmet that suggested high rank or nobility. In one clawed hand, it held what appeared to be a staff topped with a glowing crystal, but it was what the Zephyrian was doing that made Reynolds hesitate. The alien was standing perfectly still, hands raised in what could only be a gesture of surrender. Around the figure, scattered across the floor, lay the bodies of what were clearly other Zephyrians. These wore the black tactical gear that matched the intelligence reports of the militants. "Drop your weapon and get on the ground," Reynolds shouted, his rifle trained on the alien's center mass. The Zephyrian turned slowly, and Reynolds found himself looking into eyes that seemed ancient and tired. When the alien spoke, its voice was deep and resonant, with only a slight accent, despite speaking perfect English. "Human warriors, I am General Thakmore of the Queen's Royal Guard. I have been waiting for you to arrive." The alien's tone was formal, almost ceremonial. "I must speak with your commander about a matter of grave importance to both our species." Reynolds kept his weapon raised. "Where are the human hostages? Where is Ambassador Chen?" The general gestured toward a side chamber. "Ambassador Chen and her security detail are safe and unharmed. They are secured in the embassy's panic room, which I activated when the attack began. The terrorists never reached them." "Terrorists?" Reynolds asked, though he didn't lower his weapon. "You're telling me you're not the hostile?" General Thakmore stood straighter, and for a moment, his bearing was so regal that Reynolds almost felt compelled to lower his rifle. "Captain, I am a Queen's Guard, sworn protector of the Zephyrian royal family. These dead warriors around me were members of the Crimson Scale Rebellion, extremists who sought to destroy the peace between our peoples by murdering your ambassador." The general slowly reached into his armor and withdrew a small device. "May I activate this communication array? Your Ambassador Chen can verify my identity and explain the situation." Reynolds' mind raced. This was not how the mission was supposed to go. "Keep your hands visible. Martinez, can you confirm if he's telling the truth about Zephyrian military rankings?" Martinez studied the alien's armor and bearing through her scope. "Sir, the armor design matches historical records of Zephyrian nobility. That staff he's carrying appears to be a ceremonial weapon of the Queen's Guard. If he's lying, he's gone to incredible lengths to fake his credentials." Before Reynolds could respond, his comm unit crackled to life. "Captain Reynolds, this is Ambassador Chen. Can you hear me?" Reynolds felt a wave of relief. "Ambassador, this is Reynolds. Are you secure? What's your status?" "Captain, I'm fine. We're all fine. The general here saved our lives. When the Crimson Scale terrorists breached the embassy, General Thakmore was already here for a diplomatic meeting. He fought them off single-handedly and got us to safety. You need to know that he's not the enemy." Reynolds looked at the towering alien, who had remained perfectly still throughout the exchange. Something about the general's posture suggested not just surrender, but a kind of patient dignity that spoke of absolute confidence in his own honor. "General, why didn't you identify yourself earlier? Why go through this confrontation?" Thakmore's scaled features shifted in what might have been a smile. "Captain Reynolds, because what I am about to tell you will change the relationship between our species forever. And I needed to be certain that Earth's warriors were worthy of the knowledge I carry." The general slowly lowered his hands, and Reynolds found himself lowering his rifle slightly in response. There was something about the alien's presence that commanded respect, even in this tense situation. "Your species has been judged, Captain, and the judgment will surprise you." Reynolds maintained his tactical stance, but his mind was spinning with questions. Judged? What are you talking about, General? Thacmore moved with fluid grace to a wall display, his armor catching the ambient light from the holographic star map above. Captain, how much do you know about the Galactic Council? Just basic diplomatic briefings. It's some kind of governing body for spacefaring civilizations in this sector of the galaxy. The General's scaled features grew serious. The Council consists of 47 advanced species, Captain. They have been observing Earth for the past 2 centuries, ever since your people achieved nuclear capability. What they have been watching for is very specific. Martinez shifted nervously behind her weapon. Sir, should we be hearing this? This sounds like classified information. Reynolds held up a hand for silence, his instincts telling him that whatever the General was about to reveal was crucial. Continue, General. Thacmore activated the wall display, and images began flowing across its surface. Space battles, dying worlds, massive ships fleeing through the void. The galaxy is not the peaceful place your diplomats believe it to be, Captain. There is a threat coming from beyond our borders, something the Council calls the Devourers. They consume entire star systems, converting matter into more of themselves. The images showed creatures that defied description, organic ships the size of moons, and planets stripped bare of all life. Reynolds felt his team tense around him as they absorbed the implications. The Devourers have been advancing through the Outer Rim for 50 years. The Council has lost contact with 14 member species. Entire civilizations, Captain, simply gone, consumed. Reynolds lowered his weapon completely. What does this have to do with Earth? We've barely left our own solar system. The General's eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. Because, Captain Reynolds, the Council has learned something disturbing about the nature of this threat. The Devourers are not just consuming matter. They are consuming knowledge, experience, the very essence of what makes each species unique, and they grow stronger with each civilization they devour. Thacmore gestured to his fallen enemies on the floor. The Crimson Scale Rebellion was funded by Council hardliners who believe Earth should be forcibly evacuated or destroyed to prevent the Devourers from gaining access to human knowledge and creativity. They fear what your species might add to the enemy's capabilities. The weight of the revelation hit Reynolds like a physical blow. You're saying they want to destroy Earth to save the galaxy? Some do, yes. But others, including my queen, believe Earth represents something far more valuable than the Council realizes. The General's voice took on an almost reverent tone. Your species has something that no other known civilization possesses, Captain. You have tactical unpredictability combined with unbreakable loyalty to your own kind. Martinez spoke up, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. What do you mean by tactical unpredictability? Thacmore smiled, an expression that was both alien and somehow familiar. Consider your own actions tonight, Captain Reynolds. You received intelligence about hostile aliens holding human hostages. Your response was immediate, decisive, and executed with precision. But when faced with new information, you adapted instantly. You didn't blindly follow your original orders when evidence suggested a different reality. The General began pacing, his movements graceful despite his imposing size. Most species in the galaxy operate on rigid hierarchical thinking. The Vrex follow orders without question. The Talani spend months in committee before making any decision. The Corvani are so logical they become paralyzed when faced with truly chaotic situations. Reynolds was beginning to understand. But humans are different. Profoundly different. Your species combines the best aspects of many different approaches to conflict. You can follow orders when necessary, but you can also think independently when the situation demands it. You are capable of both careful planning and split-second improvisation. Most remarkably, You will sacrifice yourselves for complete strangers if you believe the cause is just." The general stopped pacing and faced Reynolds directly. "The Queen's Guard has been studying human military actions for decades. Your World War II, your responses to natural disasters, your space missions where astronauts risk their lives to save crew members they barely know. This combination of traits is unprecedented in galactic history." Sergeant Johnson, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "Are you saying we're some kind of super soldiers?" Thackmore's laughter was deep and genuine. "Not super soldiers, Sergeant. Something far more dangerous to our enemies and far more valuable to our allies. You are hope incarnate." The alien activated another section of the display, showing tactical simulations. "The Council's war against the Devourers has reached a stalemate. Our forces are powerful, but predictable. The enemy adapts to our strategies within cycles of engagement. But your species has repeatedly demonstrated the ability to find solutions where none seem to exist." Reynolds watched the simulations, seeing patterns of conventional galactic warfare. Ships in rigid formations, tactics that seemed almost ceremonial in their adherence to established doctrine. "These battles look like they're being fought by chess masters." "An excellent analogy, Captain. The galaxy fights like chess masters, following rules and patterns established over millennia. But humans fight like, what is your expression? Street fighters. You fight to win, not to follow rules." Martinez was studying the tactical displays with growing excitement. "The adaptability he's describing, it's not just military. It's cultural, technological, social. We're a species that thrives on change and challenge." The general nodded approvingly. "Precisely. Your internet, your democratic governments, your scientific method, your entertainment industry that constantly reinvents itself. You are a species defined by creative chaos, and that is exactly what the galaxy needs to defeat the Devourers." Reynolds felt the pieces clicking together. "The terrorist attack tonight. It wasn't random. The Crimson Scale faction learned that I was here to formally invite Earth to join the Galactic Defense Alliance. They attempted to prevent that invitation by killing your ambassador and framing it as an act of Zephyrian aggression. They hoped to trigger a war between our species that would eliminate Earth as a potential ally." The captain looked around at his team, seeing the same mix of awe and determination on their faces that he felt in his own chest. "And your queen wants us to join this alliance?" Thackmore straightened to his full imposing height. "More than join it, Captain. The Queen believes humanity should lead it." The silence that followed was profound. Reynolds could hear the distant sounds of the city beyond the embassy walls. Normal human life continuing in blissful ignorance of the cosmic drama unfolding around them. "General, that's a hell of a responsibility to drop on a species that just learned they're not alone in the universe." The alien's expression grew solemn. "Captain Reynolds, in approximately 18 months, the Devourer fleet will reach the outer colonies of Council space. Based on their previous patterns of advancement, they will reach Earth's solar system in less than 5 years. Your species can either stand with us and help us find a way to victory, or you can face them alone when they arrive." Martinez stepped forward. "What about the other council members? If we take a leadership role, how will they react?" "That," Thackmore said, with what Reynolds was learning to recognize as the Zephyrian equivalent of a grin, "is where tonight becomes truly interesting, Captain, because representatives from every major council species are currently in orbit around Earth, waiting for my signal. They want to meet the warriors who could adapt so quickly to an impossible situation." Reynolds felt his heart rate spike. "You mean this whole thing was a test?" The general's expression grew serious again. "The terrorist attack was real, Captain. Those were genuine Crimson Scale extremists, and they would have killed your ambassador without hesitation. But yes, your response to this situation was being carefully observed by the most powerful beings in the galaxy." The captain looked at his team, seeing the same mix of pride and uncertainty that he felt. They were just cops, trained to protect and serve their community. Now they were being asked to help save the galaxy. "General, what happens next?" Thakmor activated his communication device, and the air above it shimmered with the image of a massive space station orbiting Earth. "Now, Captain Reynolds, you and your team get to do something no humans have ever done before. You get to address the Galactic Council and tell them how Earth intends to save them all." The transport ship that carried Reynolds and his team to the orbital station was unlike anything in human experience. The interior seemed to flow like liquid metal, adjusting to accommodate their human proportions while maintaining an aesthetic that was both alien and beautiful. Through the transparent hull, Earth hung below them like a blue and white jewel, peaceful and unaware of the momentous decisions being made in the void above. General Thakmor sat across from them, his massive frame somehow managing to look both relaxed and alert. "Captain, before we dock with the Council station, there are protocols you should understand. You will be the first humans to address the full Council. How you present yourselves and your species will determine humanity's role in what comes next." Reynolds adjusted his tactical vest, feeling underdressed for what was apparently the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. "General, we're not diplomats. We're just cops who were doing our job. And that, Captain Reynolds, is precisely why the Queen chose to arrange this meeting through your response tonight, rather than through your formal diplomatic channels." Thakmor gestured toward the massive structure growing larger ahead of them. "Your diplomats would have spent months preparing careful speeches and negotiating positions. You will speak from the heart about what your species truly is." The Council station was enormous beyond comprehension, shaped like an interconnected series of rings and spheres. It stretched for kilometers in every direction. Ships of dozens of different designs docked at various ports, representing the diversity of galactic civilization. "How many species are on that thing?" Martinez asked, her voice filled with wonder. "Today, all 47 Council members have representatives aboard. Many have never left their home systems before, but they came because they had to see for themselves whether the reports about humanity were accurate." As their ship docked, Reynolds felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "General, what exactly have they been told about us?" Thakmor's expression grew thoughtful. "That Earth has produced the first truly unpredictable tactical minds the galaxy has seen in over 1,000 years. That your species combines individual initiative with group loyalty in ways that should be impossible, according to galactic psychology. That you might be the key to defeating an enemy that has already consumed 14 civilizations." The docking bay they entered was vast enough to hold several city blocks. Beings of every imaginable shape and size moved about their business, but Reynolds noticed that many stopped to stare at the human team. Some were vaguely humanoid, others were so alien that his mind struggled to process their forms. "They're all looking at us," Johnson muttered. "Of course they are," Thakmor replied. "You are either their salvation or their doom, depending on how this meeting proceeds." They were escorted through corridors that seemed to stretch forever, past chambers where beings of different species conducted business in environments tailored to their specific needs. Some areas were filled with liquid, others had different atmospheric mixtures, and some seemed to exist in dimensions that human eyes couldn't quite focus on. The council chamber itself was breathtaking. Arranged in concentric circles that extended both horizontally and vertically, it was designed to accommodate species with vastly different physical requirements. Some delegates floated in energy fields, others were encased in environmental suits, and a few existed as pure energy patterns. At the center of the chamber was a simple platform where Reynolds and his team were directed to stand. The silence that fell as they took their positions was absolute. A voice spoke in perfect English, though Reynolds couldn't identify its source. "Humans of Earth, I am Speaker Venth of the Council. We have observed your species for 2 centuries. Tonight, General Thakmor has reported that you have demonstrated the tactical adaptability and moral courage that our analysis predicted. We invite you to address the Council about your species' willingness to join our alliance against the Devourers. Reynolds looked around at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization, beings that had traveled between the stars when humans were still learning to use fire, were waiting to hear what he had to say. He took a deep breath and decided to treat this like any other briefing. Speaker Venth, members of the Council, I'm Captain Marcus Reynolds, and these are Officers Martinez, Johnson, Woods, and Riley. We're police officers from Earth, not soldiers or diplomats, but I think that might actually be relevant to what you need to know about humanity. A murmur ran through the chamber, and Reynolds could see some delegates leaning forward with interest. Tonight, we responded to what we thought was a hostage situation. Our training taught us to go in with a plan, but also taught us to adapt when the situation changed. When we discovered that General Thakmor was actually protecting human civilians rather than threatening them, we didn't stick to our original assumptions. We listened, we evaluated, and we adjusted our response. Martinez stepped forward slightly. If I may add something, Captain? Reynolds nodded, and she continued. What the captain is describing isn't just military training. It's how humans approach most challenges. We try something, see if it works. And if it doesn't, we try something else. We call it improvisation, and it's as much a part of human culture as it is our military doctrine. A new voice spoke from somewhere in the chamber, carrying harmonics that suggested it came from a being with multiple vocal cords. Human Martinez, your analysis of devourer tactics suggests they adapt to predictable patterns. How would human tactical doctrine address this? Martinez looked to Reynolds, who nodded for her to continue. We wouldn't use predictable patterns. In human military history, some of our greatest victories came from doing things that made no sense according to established doctrine. We won battles by attacking when we should have retreated, by using unconventional weapons, by trusting individual soldiers to make decisions that no command structure could have predicted. Johnson stepped forward. Ma'am, if I could add something, humans have this saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy. We plan carefully, but we also know that the most important skill is the ability to throw out the plan and improvise when everything goes wrong. Reynolds watched the alien delegates processing this information. Some seemed excited, others appeared troubled. Council members, I think what my team is trying to say is that humans specialize in chaos, not creating it unnecessarily, but thriving in it when it's forced upon us. Speaker Venth's voice carried what sounded like approval. Captain Reynolds, the General has shown us recordings of your species' response to natural disasters, terrorist attacks, and equipment failures in space. Your ability to organize effective responses to unprecedented situations is remarkable. But we must ask, would your species be willing to face an enemy that has destroyed civilizations far more advanced than your own? The chamber fell silent again, and Reynolds realized this was the moment that would define humanity's future. He thought about every police officer who had run toward danger instead of away from it, every firefighter who had entered a burning building to save strangers, every person who had risked their life because it was the right thing to do. Speaker Venth, 3 hours ago, my team and I were ready to assault a building full of hostile aliens to save people we'd never met. We didn't know if we'd survive, and we didn't know if we could win. We went anyway because it was our job and because those people needed help. Reynolds looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many of the alien delegates as he could. If there's an enemy coming that threatens not just Earth but every world in this galaxy, then stopping them becomes our job too. Humans have never been good at backing down from bullies, especially when innocent people are in danger. Riley, the sniper who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Sir, there's something else. Humans don't just adapt tactically. We adapt our enemies too. The chamber buzzed with interest, and Riley continued. Throughout our history, when we've faced enemies who seemed impossible to defeat, we didn't just find ways to fight them. We found ways to turn them against themselves, to use their own strengths as weaknesses. If these devourers learn and adapt, then we need to find ways to teach them the wrong lessons. Speaker Venth was quiet for a long moment. Human Riley, you are suggesting that your species would attempt to mislead an enemy that has consumed the knowledge of 14 civilizations. Riley grinned. Sir, humans have been misleading each other for thousands of years. We call it strategy, misdirection, psychological warfare. If these devourers expect logical, predictable responses, then the most effective approach might be to give them something completely irrational that somehow works anyway. The chamber erupted in discussion, different species communicating in ways that ranged from audible speech to patterns of light and energy. Finally, Speaker Venth called for silence. Captain Reynolds, the Council has reached a preliminary decision. We invite Earth to join the Galactic Defense Alliance not as junior partners, but as strategic tactical coordinators. Your species would be responsible for developing unconventional approaches to the devourer threat. Reynolds felt his heart racing. Speaker Venth, that's an incredible honor, but you need to understand that humans work best when we're not micromanaged. We'll need the freedom to pursue strategies that might seem crazy to more logical species. Captain, after tonight's demonstration of human tactical thinking, the Council is prepared to grant your species unprecedented autonomy. We are also prepared to share our advanced technologies and provide whatever resources you need. Martinez stepped forward one final time. Speaker Venth, there's one more thing you should know about humans. We don't just fight for ourselves. If you make us part of this alliance, every species in this chamber becomes family, and humans will do anything to protect our family. The silence that followed was different from before. Reynolds could sense something shifting in the chamber, a recognition that this moment was historic. Speaker Venth's final words carried the weight of galactic authority. Then let it be recorded that on this day, humanity joined not just the Galactic Council, but took its place as the sword and shield of civilization itself. The devourers have consumed the knowledge of our greatest military minds, but they have never faced the one thing that defines humanity above all else. And what is that? Reynolds asked. Hope, Captain Reynolds. Hope combined with the absolute refusal to surrender, no matter how impossible the odds. As the council chamber erupted in what could only be described as interspecies applause, Reynolds looked at his team and realized that their simple police response to a hostage situation had just changed the course of galactic history. The real fight was just beginning. But for the first time in 50 years, the galaxy had something it hadn't had before, a reason to believe they could win.